Several years ago, my family and I watched the Bourne Legacy. My family is a fan of the Bourne franchise in general, and when they released a spin-off Bourne movie starring Jeremy Renner, we were excited. The movie follows Aaron Cross, an agent of Project Outcome. When Jason Bourne's actions threaten to expose all the CIA's pharmaceutical Black Ops programs, Edward Norton's character orders the program terminated, which means that all the content and all individuals are in danger. To no surprise, it was great. The writing was smart, telling its own unique story, but adding to the Bourne universe. It had great and unique action and was paced reasonably well. Finally, Jeremy Renner and Rachel Weisz were great and had decent chemistry. However, upon looking at the reception of the movie, it was quite different. In fact, people were disappointed.
So the extreme lack of action and the dialogue being so wordy and heavy and very difficult to understand really clashes to make a kind of bland, mediocre movie, unfortunately.
7. But the Bourne Legacy, it just doesn't land. I don't hate the movie or anything. I actually think Jeremy Renner and especially Rachel Weisz are pretty solid here. But watching this, there's always this nagging feeling that the movie just doesn't need to exist. Probably not helped by
But as a whole, this movie feels like a forced sequel to a trilogy that it's springboarding off of that it's not as good as.
But when I look at the criticism this film faces, I can see where some of it's coming from, but I'm not sure it's entirely accurate. From what I can gather, the criticism mainly boils down to the lack of action and the feeling that the movie itself is unnecessary. But is this true?
This movie's 135 minutes long, and I would say there's probably about 10 full minutes of action in this movie. Absolutely right. What the critics are saying is true. There is an incredible lack of action in this movie. It is mind-blowing how much action is actually not in this movie.
And a couple of fight scenes later, 2 hours into the movie, the action kicks on, you're like, too little too late. It now feels like a grade B version of a Bourne movie.
Although I will admit, I do believe that Bourne Legacy on the whole might have less action, people's perception of Bourne Ultimatum seems to have colored their perception of the first two Bourne movies, because they were not packed with wall-to-wall action. When it comes to analyzing the action in the Bourne franchise, it's actually not as straightforward as you might imagine. Before we begin, we have to figure out what counts as action and what does not. One thing you'll notice is that the Bourne films have a lot of times where people just point guns at each other and talk. This does elevate the tension more than just two people talking. However, there is no exchange of bullets, fists, or knives, making it hard to count. Hateful Eight or Reservoir Dogs has a lot of this, but I would not classify either as an action film. Chase sequences most certainly count. However, here again, the Bourne franchise straddles the line. There are many scenarios where Bourne is walking briskly and breaking corners to avoid apprehension, more so than full-out chase sequences, compared to what you might see in other films. However, I will still be counting this. Moving to the first installment, Bourne Identity, we have a total of 14 minutes of action, plus or minus 1 minute for small 30-second skirmishes, with 4 minutes in the bank, 2 minutes in the apartment, 3 minutes and 30 seconds for the Paris chase scene, 2 minutes and 30 seconds for the cat and mouse sniper scene, and finally the last action scene of the standoff at around 2 minutes. These are not exact numbers, only rough ones. Bourne Supremacy contains 27 minutes plus or minus 2 minutes of action, a short deal gone wrong, a 4-minute chase sequence, a fight at a house for 3 minutes, a nail-biting walking chase for 4 minutes, a 5-minute hotel escape sequence, and a final 9-minute on-foot 2-car chase sequence to end the film. Which moves us to Bourne Ultimatum, the most action-packed Bourne film with a total of 35 minutes of action in a movie with a runtime of 1 hour and 46 minutes, making it the Bourne film with the most total action and the most action relative to its runtime. Looking over this data, I do see where Bourne Legacy finds its problems. For one, Bourne Legacy has a higher runtime than any other of the other Bourne films. coming in at 15 to 20 minutes longer, meaning that even if there is more action than some, the longer runtime dilutes it, leading to longer scenes of people talking and various back and forths. Bourne Legacy also suffers from 2 long action sequences at the beginning and at the end. If these 2 action sequences were cut in half and went towards one more new action sequence similar to the fight scene in the house, it would have aided the film greatly. Finally, the unique guerrilla style of Paul Greengrass is replaced with a much steadier hand, making the film feel less kinetic than, say, Ultimatum, meaning that even if there is no technical action that's taking place, it still feels as if it does. This does not mean Bourne Legacy is worse. It has more action than Identity, both in total and relative to its runtime, and it definitely has better action scenes than Supremacy, which is more of chases and brisky walking rather than all-out fighting. Adding on to this, quality is also a factor. The action set pieces in Bourne Legacy are top-notch, each being significantly different than the next. The first action set piece is set in the Alaskan wilderness, where Aaron must deal with a drone seeking his elimination while simultaneously dealing with a pack of wolves. There is a brutal mass shooting that is quite nerve-wracking and showcases just how brutal the actions the NSA take are. This brings us to the best action sequence in the movie, where Jeremy Renner's character systematically eliminates a 4-man D-track group of assassins. This fully shows Aaron's abilities, taking each of the members down in a smart way while showcasing his combat skills. And finally, a glorious chase sequence where Aaron and Dr. Weiss make one last final break to escape from the jaws of the United States government. Throughout the film, there are a few skirmishes, but that covers the main set pieces. Sure, it may not be plentiful, but I believe it takes a more thoughtful approach, as not all the action sequences in the original Bourne movies are all that good. For example, this scene where Bourne just shoots this guy crouching in the field. The other reason people do not like this movie is because it's unnecessary. Bourne Ultimatum perfectly wrapped up the story, and Legacy just felt as if it was tacked on. A story that possessed none of the intrigue of the mainline films.
Aaron Cross just doesn't have an interesting hook in the way that Bourne did. There's so much intrigue and exposition in this movie, but it's all in service of a story that has almost no emotional weight to it. Without Bourne's journey of self-discovery, what are we even left with? Judging by Legacy and the next 2 Bourne projects, not much.
However, I feel as if I have watched a different movie. Sure, it doesn't have the quote-unquote hook of the mainline Bourne films. However, it has a smartly told, well-paced story that fleshes out the entire world.
What if she gets up there and she says, Treadstone, Blackbriar, you think that was it? You think that Jason Bourne was the whole story? Sorry, there's a lot more going on here. What if she tells them that Treadstone was just the tip of the iceberg? Look,
For the most part, when watching the mainline films, you never get to know what these projects are beyond having a network of assets that are all emotionless hyperkillers. Did they just torture Bourne and then he became a CIA assassin? I don't know, but it's in Legacy that we finally get a peek under the hood of the program's engine. Pharmaceutical companies have figured out a way to artificially enhance soldiers using a cocktail of drugs. They are not super soldiers, but with just slight percent increases, the effects can be dramatic.
You've had some very minor alterations made to 2 different chromosomes. The green side, the physical side, is nothing more than a 1.5% rise in your mitochondrial protein uptake. But with 1.5%, you see this immediate increase in cellular tempo.
Aaron Cross has been relying on these pills for a while, but with production shut down, there are no more pills coming his way. He must now find a permanent solution or face the intense withdrawal symptoms, all while evading the authorities.
Program medication.
Are they all dead?
Yeah, they're dead. Look at me. Look at me. You have program medication here.
What?
Chems, greens, blues. Do you have them here?
No.
No?
Here?
Here.
No.
Well, where then? Where? Where do you have them?
Where?
Where do you keep the chems?
I don't know.
Dr. Shearing, where are the chems? I need the chems!
No.
It does an excellent job of keeping much of the Bourne feel while telling an engaging story. Although you may not get Bourne, Cross is still a compelling character in many ways. He is experienced, decisive, and can often be more charismatic than Bourne. He is not constantly trying to figure out who he is. Rather, he has a clear objective and must now go on a mission to fulfill it. Along the way, he teams up with Rachel Weisz's character, a PhD neurobiologist researcher who plays a hand in developing the drugs used in all the programs. She's the best companion, I believe. She fits in with the story, and the interactions between the two characters can be a lot more complex.
Keep us dependent? Who tells you that this is okay?
No, I do.
Who says it's okay?
I do research. I design, I survey, I don't administer meds. I don't make policy.
Now you just load the gun.
I certainly think it is more interesting than the random girl Bourne meets.
What are you looking at?
I heard you inside.
What?
The consulate, I heard you talking. I thought maybe we could help each other.
The final piece of the puzzle is the Hunter. And to me, Edward Norton is the best in this role for the whole Bourne series. He is hyper-efficient and ruthless, all while justifying what he has to do.
Question, sir?
No, it's not. Tune into what I'm trying to say to you. Do you know what a sin eater is? Well, that's what we are. We are the sin eaters. It means that we take the moral excrement that we find in this equation and we bury it down deep inside of us so that the rest of our cause can stay pure. That is the job. We are morally indefensible and absolutely necessary. Stop. I can't run this from here. I need a crisis suite. I need integrated grids and comms. I need all of it. NSA or Pentagon or Liberty Crossing, I don't care. Just get me something now. Pack up your codes and your drives, whatever else you're gonna need. We're gonna move and we're gonna stay there. Dita, how am I putting a net over that house? There's locals all over it.
We go with germs. She took samples from work, pathogens, viruses, it's national security.
Good, okay, I like that. It plays now. Get it out there. Come on, let's go. Everybody find another gear, okay? Because I want to be out of here in 20.
He is not some corrupt official. Rather, he is simply the janitor, tasked with cleaning everything up, and boy does he do a good job. Certainly better than the headhunters in the other Bourne films. All this to say that the primary criticism the film faces are not entirely accurate. This is significantly different than the other Bourne films, maybe the most different. However, it still holds its place among them, keeping the tenets of a more realistic, smartly told spy thriller. It does some things better than some of the main Bourne movies, and some things worse than the Bourne movies. But to write this film off as some boring, soulless cash grab is reductive.
This Bourne movie, Bourne Legacy, was a critical and commercial failure. And it starred Jeremy Renner. It's clear that the Bourne franchise became more important than the Bourne films. Creating a new Bourne was clearly a money move.
Bourne Legacy, that was the money movie. That was them saying, like, who cares about Jason Bourne? The franchise is the important thing, and they made it, and it didn't work. It didn't make the money. It wasn't critically successful. So they knew that this Bourne Legacy idea, like, they did the Jason Bourne move wasn't the money move. The Bourne Legacy was the money move, and they saw that people weren't going to buy it.
All you need to do is take a deep breath, give this movie some space from the trilogy, and view it almost as its own experience that fleshes out the Bourne universe. If you do this, I believe you will find a fresh spy thriller experience you have been craving. Thank you for watching.